So I'm going to be calling this series Progressing Warframe now because of a comment that was left on the previous video. Fixing doesn't sound like the best sort of, I guess, way to phrase it, because Warframe, in a sense, is a broken game, but isn't really a broken game because it's still functional, it's still playable, it's still enjoyable. So I totally understand that comment and why the title should be changed. Like I said in the first video anyway, I wasn't 100% sold on the title. I just wanted to get the idea out there to get some feedback so we can progress the idea a lot more. So thank you for all the positive and even negative feedback on that video, because it allows me to sort of talk more about the idea that I had in the last video, sort of expand upon it and explain my thought process behind it, because there's a lot of people saying, hey Flynn, I agree with your idea, but there's a few things that I would change, or you know, I completely disagree, or things like that there. So a lot of people, the number one comment or the most commented thing with the last Progressing Warframe video or Fixing Warframe video was that, you know, the game already has tutorials in it. It's got the codex. But my problem with the codex, right, is that it takes the player out of the actual game. You're not actually playing Warframe then. What I mean by that there is you're going and you're taking the time out of your gameplay experience, the time that you could be spending playing the game and reading something. Basically what you do now, you take your time, you tab out of the game, you go on the wiki, you search something up, and then you have that information. That's a waste of time. That takes the player out of the game and ruins their experience, especially as a newer player. Even at that, the codex isn't really hinted at as much at the beginning of the game. So that's why, you know, a lot of people won't go near the codex, because they have to read all the information that they could get if the developers were just like able to put the effort into the game and then make a tutorial to explain everything by showing the player how to actually do it within the game, like actually playing the game, instead of having them to read every single thing that there is to do with Warframe, so the damage types, all that other stuff. The thing with that is, it ruins your immersion of the initial gameplay experience. We as players now, like I said beforehand, we are a very small percentage of players who are still playing Warframe and can go out and digest information, come back and then apply that to our gameplay experience within the game. We're a very small percentage, and I've seen a lot of, I don't want to say ignorant comments, but not every single person wants to go outside for information, or wants to stop playing the game to get information, or wants to go look within the game to get information. People just want to play the game, progress, and play with their friends, not really, you know, going and looking for information to read up on and then read all this confusing shit. They just need something that they can play. It explains it in the simplest form possible, and then there you go. That's pretty awesome, right? So instead of like going over the codex and reading all those massive paragraphs of text on how damage works, and reading all these different elemental combos and things like that there, and damage 2.0 and melee 2.0 and spy 2.0 and all these different iterations of all these different things, you know, it would give the player more questions than answers, I feel, if they went to the codex. It's a big problem that Destiny also had. A lot of people were pissed off with Destiny's story because you had to go to another source, be it within the game or outside of the game, to read up about the story. Reading the story, reading something that should be in the game, a gameplay mechanic to a degree that should have been in the game, which is the same with a tutorial and like basically the rest of Warframe, right? You should be able to play that game and learn everything about the game and its environment, its gameplay mechanics and story just by playing, rather than going and finding a different source of information. So that was just a little rant on, you know, what I was thinking when I was reading the comment section. The majority of people agreed with what I had to say, putting a tutorial in. Maybe people disagreed with, you know, the positioning of it, like putting it like directly at the start and ruining the prologue. I guess that makes kind of sense. And then they recommended like using Ordis as like an AI to teach you all these things, rather than having the Lotus or Teshin or something, which is a good idea. You know, it's basically what I was talking about, that character development, and makes you more sort of connected with Ordis as, you know, your ship's Cephalon, right? Which makes sense, because he is, I feel more attached to Ordis while playing Warframe than I do with, you know, the Lotus or Teshin or something. It just kind of makes more sense to me, because he's always with you, he's trying to be funny, and, you know, he's sort of yours to a degree, if you get what I mean. So that totally makes sense, at least in my opinion, because it gives that connection to the player straight away once they boot up the game. So that was definitely a good recommendation from you guys in the comment section as well. But in today's video, I want to more talk about whenever you started, like, getting to the planets, right? So whenever you are first introduced into the star chart, you get your quest to go and kill Vor. That's very self-explanatory. You can get there, you can kill him. Then after that point, you're stuck on the planets. You have no idea what to do. You're just kind of doing quest after quest after quest. There's no direction and things like that there. So I don't know if I want to talk about this if we imply, like, all the other changes that I mentioned in the previous video were already implemented, or if I want to talk about this like as it is right now. Both, I guess I can kind of talk about both to a degree, so I guess we'll just jump right into that. So if the player had tutorials at the start of the game and they were given the necessary mods that they needed to progress through the game, Endo and all was explained to them, things like that they would basically fly through the star chart and almost have no problems doing so, and then they would be able to get to the point of, let's say, Saturn, right? So once you hit Saturn, that's whenever I feel the player like hits another sort of progression curve, because they're able to get corrupted mods which would push them into that higher end content, because you're getting an extra like 165% extra damage on your weapons. You get more mods for your powers, like, you know, fleet and expertise, transient fortitude, because that's the point, that's the very earliest stage of which you could get your corrupted mods. So that is sort of my progression curve. I go from at the beginning, I progress all the way to Saturn, then at Saturn I farm up all of my corrupted mods, level them up a little bit, and then I progress through, and then hopefully by that point, once I hit about, let's say, Uranus, I want to be this sort of fully decked out, have maybe all of my mods halfway leveled to what I want them to be, and then once I hit Pluto, I would farm out Endo and then get all my mods ranked up. That's sort of my progression within Warframe. So it sounds very streamlined because the player would already understand how to, you know, apply element and combos, how to not mod their Warframe necessarily, so they'd still have questions about that there, but, you know, we can talk about that there in a later video about introducing the Warframes to a player, maybe giving them like a little intro cinematic, or like a, you know like the videos they produce on YouTube. If you go to the Warframe YouTube channel, you would see like little trailers that they have for every single Warframe, which explains all of their abilities, and it tells you what mods you could equip on them to make that Warframe better, integrating a video within the game to explain like how a frame works. That would be awesome, you know. A game like Smite does that. Whenever you play a new god for the first time, you can press K, and then the YouTube video that Smite has posted on their official channel would be embedded into the game, and you can watch that there, and it will explain all those gods' abilities. Just a fun little thing that I thought that Smite did, which Warframe could do, and explain all of those abilities, which would give a player more of a sense if they would like to go ahead and get that frame, or if they had the ability to mod that frame correctly, you know. They could even put that in the market whenever a player is going in and viewing all those different frames to see, okay, well, what frame would I want? What frame sort of suits my playstyle? Would I play with that frame? Would I enjoy playing that frame? Should I just go get something different? Where do I go to get it? Things like that there. It wouldn't necessarily be giving them all the information that they would need, but it would be a good start. Just giving that player a lot more information and giving them the choice of what to go to, letting them make an informed decision of where they can go when they enter in the star chart. Because once you hit that Saturn point, it's kind of just progressing all the way around to Sedna from that point onwards and doing some quests along the way. You know, you get up to, I want to say, the War of Inn once you do hit Sedna, if I'm not mistaken. So once you get the War of Inn, you're pretty much done, right? So that's all the content, in quotation marks, which Warframe would have to offer for a casual player going through the game. If you are allowing players to get to that point a lot faster, you could develop more endgame content for those players, because they're all sort of sitting at that point. You have every single person in the community at a level playing field. Whether they're Master Rank 7, whether they're Master Rank 23, it doesn't really matter, because they have all hit that point within the game. It's making that experience of going through the star chart for the very first time as informative and as streamlined as possible, and basically explaining to the player, okay, this is how you farm up Warframes, this is how you would craft your Warframe, which should, basically the foundry should be explained in the prologue or in the tutorial, which I mentioned beforehand. But, you know, the sort of concept of farming a frame off a boss or a certain planet or a quest needs to be explained to the player, and they need to be given direction rather than relying on something like a forum post or, you know, something in the codex, something like that there. You know, they have to implement something in the game which will show the player, this is where you get this frame, or this is how you get this frame. It wouldn't take the grind out of the game by any means. Of course, you have something like the Mirage quest, which, you know, you have to sort of solve a riddle or something. That's totally fine, because, you know, most people would go to an outside source for a puzzle or something. Like, that's totally fine, like I said beforehand. But for just going and getting a Warframe, there needs to be something in the game which indicates to the player, this is where you get this frame, this is how you get this frame, and this is what this frame is good for. You know, it's explaining that concept of how Warframes work, how you can get more Warframes, and all that good stuff. Do they need to explain Platinum to the players? I don't know if they need to explain Platinum to the players, because Platinum, at least in my opinion, was kind of self-explanatory whenever I first picked up Warframe, but it would be nice giving them a heads up, maybe whenever they first log into the market, that, hey, this is Warframe's premium currency, you can use this here to buy more slots, which will allow you to carry more Warframes at any given time. So just have them in your inventory, basically, not play them all in the one mission. But, you know, just explaining a lot of stuff to the player is very important, especially for the newer player coming in, running through the star chart for the first time. Letting them know that they can get all of those warframes that they want, and then they're able to farm them up. Another thing that I have problem with would be the junctions, but I don't know every single junction requirement off by heart right now. But the junction requirements do need to look at, and they need to be a lot more informative. A good example, like I said, would be Saturn, because once you hit that Saturn point, you have the ability to go and get those corrupted mods. I think that the requirements for the junction going to, is it the junction after Saturn that goes to, I think it's Uranus or Neptune or something. The junction on Saturn that leads to the next planet should have to make the player get a corrupted mod, okay? That way, it shows the player this is where the corrupted mod is, and you can't progress past this point unless you experience getting that corrupted mod for the very first time, because that way you know you can go back there and you can get around the mod every single time, and then that is a very strong mod. Hell, just straight up give them heavy caliber from their first attempt at that there. Just make that there like a set drop, give them heavy caliber, say this is how you boost your damage up later on. You can come back here and then, you know, get more very powerful mods which would up the damage of your Warframe. The corrupted mods, the corrupted vaults, should be a quest at that Saturn point. Say, let's just say the corrupted. You call the quest the corrupted and make the player go into that vault, or like, you know, get the Lotus to sort of explain, okay, you go get a key, find the key, go to the orc and whatever, and then just sort of guide the player to that corrupted vault and show, okay, this is where you get that mod, which will make you more powerful later on. Very important thing, and that's basically it, you know. So just a little bit of food for thought there, really. Like I said, I don't know all the junction requirements off by heart, so it's hard to sort of sit here and say, yes, you know, we should change X requirement to X thing to make the player sort of have more information on the star chart so they can get to that end game point a little bit faster. I'm thinking more of this series like getting every single player who starts the game to that sort of point of the War of In, where they're able to have their weapons which can one-shot an enemy super quickly, and then building upon that there, you know, making them stronger and making the content more challenging later on in the game. So improving the start is sort of the first steps, the baby steps that I go for, because I got a comment saying, you know, they have to apply these things all across the game, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm starting from the very beginning, and I'm trying to sort of make it as informative as possible as the player is progressing through the game, getting them to that War Within point, whether they're Master Rank 7 or Master Rank 23, doesn't really matter. They all have the corrupted mods, they have their elemental mods, they're able to mod a weapon, they have that knowledge. So those three standout things, they have the equipment, they have the knowledge, and they have the power to, you know, play something more challenging than the War Within. You know, maybe even, I don't want to say sorties, because sorties are super easy, but just making something more challenging on top of the War Within and sort of progressing the community from that point onwards would be pretty cool. So leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. You know, how would you sort of streamline the process of traveling through the star chart to get into the War Within, and then what will you do after the War Within? Like, how would you make a player, or what would you make a player do? You know, what new activity would be there, what quest would be there, you know, things like that there. It's all about putting thoughts into one another's heads and then expanding upon that there and going from there. So, like I said, tell me your thoughts and opinions, leave them down in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button below. If you want to see more Warframe content from me, hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.